Hey guys, I am Keegan Russell, and this is the KC Sports Authority podcast. You can find the podcast over on Spotify. You can listen to us there. You can also watch our episodes over on YouTube. Wherever you do listen or watch from, thank you for doing that. Please hit that subscribe button and share with your friends. All right, we want to get straight into it. There is a never-ending news cycle when it comes to Kansas basketball right now with roster turnover, and the latest news coming out today, May 11th, which is the last day of the transfer portal, is the unfortunate news that Kansas sophomore big man Ernest Udeh Jr. has officially put his name into the portal. That is now the entire freshman class from last year has entered the transfer portal, plus a few other guys. So lots to get into. JB, let's just get straight to it. First initial thoughts.
Yeah, this is the news that none of us wanted this morning, and I would like to say that none of us expected it, but that's not true. I think there were some rumblings that people expected. Well, with the signing of Hunter Dickinson, with the rumors about Mackenzie Mgbako coming to Kansas and having a good chance at coming to Kansas, we can talk about that later. But there was rumors about, well, Zuby could be gone, and then Zuby leaves, and Ernest could go too. And I think that was where, personally, for me, I drew the line. I didn't think Ernest had much of a reason to leave. It came as a shock to me at first, and it also just drowned me in sorrow. Like, I was uh, maintaining my composure at work earlier today, but I wanted to cry because I love the kid, and I think he's a tremendous talent. I think he is a guy in the locker room that everybody loves. And I go on KU Twitter after I got out of a meeting, scrolling through, and I just see everybody's just so sad over this news, and it's well deserved. I mean, it's been a long time, I think, since I've seen this level of just depression. I don't know if I want to use that word, but it's been a while since we've seen a Kansas player that was so loved in such a short amount of time transferring away, and now the whole fan base is just upset. It's just a devastating time. So unfortunate, but that's kind of the kind of college basketball experience that we have these days.
Yeah, when you sent that text out this morning, and because you saw that before I saw it this morning,
Yeah.
and even though it was somewhat unexpected today, it was definitely a thought that could have been possible. I think most of us as KU fans felt pretty comfortable that after Zuby went into the portal, that there was a pretty much a locked chance that Udeh returns, being the main backup guy. And there's, of course, a lot we can get into with this. I want to start this with, though, today is May 11th at the time of this recording, and today was the deadline to enter the transfer portal. So as we get into talking why he put his name in the portal versus staying, just a reminder that if he didn't put his name in the portal today, he wouldn't be eligible to transfer and play this upcoming season. If he decided later in the year that he did want to leave the program, he would then have to sit out the rest of the year. So let's just start with that. Whether he ends up leaving or not, he still had to declare to give himself options. And I think for me, that's
Right.
where my focus is having his name in the portal. He has options. What we're going to do is discuss what those options might be. And not that we're going to speak for him. We're going to obviously speak from the fan base and what we think is going to happen. But just from a fan's perspective, and to you guys listening, the fans, this gives Ernest options. Obviously, playing time is going to be few and far between with the landing of Hunter Dickinson. That's obvious. You're really competing for 8 to 10 minutes at the 5 spot. For a guy who's got a lot of high ceiling that Ernest has, that doesn't sound that enticing, in all honesty, for someone who's trying to develop. I think what was hard for the fans, though, today is you see that, one, again, you felt good with Zuby being gone, that Ernest was staying. And I think the fans and probably Bill Self's perspective was, this guy's going to develop over the next 3 years,
Yeah.
and he's going to be the next big KU
Udoka as a
guy.
bookie.
Yeah, he's going to have a tremendous senior year. And,
Yep.
that may still be the case. But maybe Ernest is thinking, I don't want to develop over 3 years. I want the opportunity to come play now. Like I know I'm talented. In the spurts I got last year, you saw my progress throughout the year. And even though they were, not huge minutes here and there, he was more than capable. And I think that left a lot of KU fans excited of what could come down the road. And of course, now you get Hunter Dickinson, maybe that um, time on the floor diminishes. And that's a big thought process there. But again, fans, just because he declared does not mean it's unlikely or impossible for him to return. His options are open. He could still return. We've seen different rumors throughout the day from different
Yeah.
folks here and there that, maybe this is just him putting his options out there just in case another team says, hey, we have a bigger role for you. Why don't you come on over? Or it could be Ernest trying to play the NIL game and going, hey,
Yeah.
you're bringing Hunter in and you're paying him the bag. And now I have to sit on the bench. I'll stay and develop and take my time, but you got to pay me for the sacrifice I'm giving you. That's one way you could look at it. So maybe that's something he's got up his sleeves, trying to find a better NIL deal to
Yeah.
renegotiate to stay with KU. Um,
You
but
gotta
yeah, definitely.
wonder, like, you gotta wonder if that was actually the case, if he is trying to get some money out of NIL just as incentive to stay. You gotta wonder what Bill Self thinks about that.
Well, and he
You
should
gotta
be.
wonder. I mean, it's gosh, it's weird. I can't imagine the position that Bill Self is in, having been used to coaching these guys with the expectation of, look, like you are not a pro yet. You are not making money. You are going to do what I say so you can become a pro and you can make money. Now these guys are making money, and NIL. I mean, it's I don't know. It's starting already with a slippery slope of guys utilizing that opportunity to almost exploit the coaches that they're playing for,
Sure.
and it's becoming less of a privilege and more of a job. And
Yeah.
that just seems it seems positive in some aspects, absolutely, but it can absolutely be negative on that same accord. So I'm not really sure. I hope that it's not with any ill intent, and I do hope that he can come back if he doesn't find anywhere to go.
And just to further speak into your point, a few I can't remember the exact date now, but when the transfer portal uh time frame all that started, there was like 130 players the first day that entered the portal. As of the end of today, I don't have this exact total right now, but it's over 1,700 players, with more probably still in the mix there that we just haven't heard yet. So
Wow.
this NIL stuff definitely is going to play a huge factor in not just high school recruitment, but the transfer portal as a whole. And I think KU is seeing the downside of NIL and the transfer portal. I mean, obviously, landing Hunter Dickinson is far, in my opinion, still far bigger than keeping Udeh, because those are two completely different players. But the downside is now you lose a guy who's that developmental guy who's going. Maybe the people in his camp are saying, "Hey, you could go somewhere else, get some more money, get a better opportunity, not have to wait two years." Because that's the thing with Hunter here. Hunter's here for 1 year for sure. The numbers aren't out yet, but the talk is that Hunter is signing some sort of a potential 2 year, $4 million NIL deal, which I have no clue on how that works. It makes no sense to me. It sounds like NBA free agency that he's signing this contract. Um, but theoretically, Hunter could be here 2 years. So now if you're Uday, you have to sit another 2 more years on the bench where you could go somewhere else and start playing right away. So to me, I think that's the biggest reason why his name is in the portal. But I do think there is some hope for him to return, especially if KU expresses their desire to keep him and finds a way to bring him into the mix. But JV, I just for a moment
Yeah.
here, I want to put ourselves in Ernest's shoes for a moment. What do you think are some of the thoughts going through his head? What would you do in this situation, trying to explore your opportunities? Kind of speak into that for a second.
Yeah, it's tough for him because he is a McDonald's All-American. I think when you're a McDonald's All-American, there's this expectation that you are the upper echelon of incoming talent to a college roster, and you are someone that's expected to be one and done, or maybe you play for 2 years and you're out. And Ernest Uday he's really well and far above many of the freshmen that I think we've had recently. I think especially by the end of the year, he was developing into quite a talent, and especially during the offseason. What were we talking about long before Hunter Dickinson was on our radar? We were talking about Ernest is going to start. He we were talking about how it might look a little ugly with having Ernest and KJ both starting because we didn't really run that a lot last year. We did early against the really easy opponents, but um, he was under the expectation that, hey, I'm going to be a sophomore and I'm going to be starting every single game and I'm going to be playing those starter minutes, and that's what he
Or at
wants
least
because
competing to start.
right, and he wants to make an NBA roster. I think he's thinking, gosh, how can I really show my improvement off of a bench? But you actually can. There's people that get drafted off the bench. It's not out of the question. So what I think for Ernest is, there was also speculation of maybe this means Hunter staying for 2 years. I highly doubt that just for myself. Now, I think it's possible, but we won't know that for another year. We won't know that answer. Hunter doesn't know that answer. Bill Self doesn't know that answer. So the whole 2 year wait thing, I don't really buy that argument. I don't really buy the idea that he's thinking he's going to have to wait another 2 years and then start. Um, that's just not the case. He's looking for an opportunity, but you know what? I'm looking at this roster, and there's not another guy on this roster taller than 6'7", 6'8". He is our backup center, and he would get plenty of minutes, especially if Hunter ever got into foul trouble. We need him. This is a big, big blow to our depth. So maybe that case can be made, and he can end up taking his name out of the portal and staying, but we'll just have to see.
So Ernest, if he does leave, I think KU fans are still going to remember him fondly for the year he had. We're going to have a lot of potential thoughts on what could have been, but just like most transfers, most of these guys transfer out without any ill intent or did anything wrong here. So KU fans are always excited to keep up with where they're going. So if he does end up transferring elsewhere, I'm sure we will all still be watching and wishing him the best of luck, unless he goes to Kentucky, which is all I'll say on that. He is on their radar. I don't know how likely it is, but that's all I'll say there. Same with Duke. Duke's also potentially on his radar. But that does leave a gaping hole in the roster. Even if, which as of by the time you guys hear this, we might even have news on this already, but if Mackenzie Mgbako does sign with KU, obviously he's not playing the 5, but that would leave us with 2 more scholarships still remaining. It's clear and evident that at least one of those is going to a big man, if not 2. Like you said, there's no one else on this roster above 6'7", no one else that's going to play the 5. I don't think Bill Self's intention is to have KJ come off the bench or have him be the backup 5-man this year, this upcoming year. Just because the transfer portal names have ended today, there's still plenty of offseason left for Bill to find a couple other guys. And of course, there's still the NBA draft process. You never know who's going to step back out of that. So let's just kind of quickly go through a couple names. Again, we don't want to spend too much time on this because it's all speculation. And I'm sure in the next day or so, we'll have some more news on potential names, but I want to run a couple by you. The first one, which I think is the most obvious, or one of the most obvious names that's left in the portal, is Grant Nelson, the 6'11", 235-pound big man from North Dakota State. Had an impressive year this last year, averaging just under 18 a game, 9 rebounds, 1.7 blocks. But we'd love to see him in a KU uniform. Highly doubt that happens because he's not going to come play off the bench, but he would have size. Musa Cisse is probably the one that makes the most sense right now. The transfer from Oklahoma State, 7'1", big man, averaged about 7 points a game, 8 rebounds, 2 blocks a game. You're not asking him to do a whole lot here that he was doing at Oklahoma State. But I think the big question with him is I think he has to get an NCAA waiver to play immediately. If that's not the case, then great. I think he would fit in tremendously as a backup big rim protector and could play minutes if Hunter's out for some reason. One of the bigger names that entered the portal today, and he's not a true 5-man, but he's been on KU's radar for years, and we recruited him out of high school. But that's Arthur Kaluma from Creighton. About 6'7", 220, more of a 3-4 guy, but has the size and athleticism to guard the 5 spot and could be used as a stretch big. He's also in the NBA draft process, so we won't know much on him for a few more weeks, but I do know KU's on his radar for sure. Another stretch big man, Oliver, and I'm going to totally butcher his last name, Nakamhua from Tennessee. he actually played really well against Kansas this last year in that game. He's more of a stretch man, not big size, but long arm athletic, decent two-way player. He was fairly efficient scorer on the offensive side. And then I got a couple fun names here. So those ones up there are the ones that are potential. I think Musa Cisse is the most likely of all those. But then I got a couple fun ones here. And again, I'm going to totally butcher this guy's name. Aziz Bonduego, the 7-footer from Utah Valley. I think that would be exciting just because we'd have 2 7-footers on the team, and that's never been a thing at Kansas. Again,
Never.
he played at Utah Valley, so much different level of play, but could translate. He is also one that would need an NCAA waiver. This is his second. This would be a second transfer, but supposedly he's got some things in the work there. But he'd be an amazing rim protector. Super athletic. Again, you're not asking him to come in and do a whole lot, but he is one of those upperclassmen transfers, so he might be looking for a bigger role. And I know Duke is on he is on Duke's radar to come in and be their rim protector there. And then this one's got to be one of my favorite in the portal just because of the imagination I am running with on seeing him in a KU uniform. And that's Conor Vanover. JB, I don't know if you're familiar with Conor Vanover, but he is a 7'5" big man from Oral Roberts. If you guys watched Oral Roberts in the tournament,
Yeah.
you definitely saw him. He's also formerly of Arkansas from Little Rock. He played at Arkansas for a year, then transferred. This man is 7'5", averaged about 13 a game, 3.5 blocks a game, 7 rebounds a game, shoots over 80% from the free throw line, about 32% from three. But this man, even at 7'5", averaged about 4 3-point attempts a game in 25 minutes. So your biggest concern being 7'5", can he handle running up and down the court? He plays 25 minutes a game, no problem there. Can he spread the floor and shoot? Clearly, that's what he did at Oral Roberts, and this last year was his most efficient year in that system. I would love to see that. He is also in the draft process, but I don't think he's getting drafted because he's not going to get drafted. But could he be a backup option? Would he be willing to come off the bench and play that backup role? I don't know. I think that's more of a dream scenario, but he is one that I've looked at. And I've got 2 more I'm going to mention, but before I do that, because I think these 2 are incredibly unlikely, it would just be fun. What are some names that you want to throw out there, or some guys that you're thinking, okay, you could go after?
Oh man, it's tough because I was looking at the transfer portal specifically, and it's looking pretty slim.
There's only like 3 or 4 big men that are really left on there.
Yeah, Jalen Tyson, he's committed to Cal. That was pretty much expected. Of course, he wouldn't really play the 5 for us, but even then, there's not a lot of centers. I do like Cisse as an option. I'll take a Big 12 guy. I mean, if we can swing that would be great. I'm not sure how much conversation we've had with him personally, but yeah, I think he'd be great.
Bill Self's not afraid to take other Big 12 guys. He's done it in the past.
He's definitely not. There's, as far as bigs, it's tough. I think it's got to be one of those guys. If we can somehow convince Grant Nelson, I would just take him. It's just slim pickings, and it's starting to make me a little bit worried. Which I don't know if Ernest is gone, then he's gone, and we're just gonna have to play KJ at the 5 position when Hunter is not on the floor, and it's unfortunate, but at least he's used to it. I know KJ's tired of guarding big guys. He was I read a tweet. He was reading or he was texting Hunter saying, "You got to come to Kansas because I'm tired of guarding the 5." Yep. So, KJ, now he will excel in whatever role that we give him, but I don't know if we can find anyone. So I don't have a good answer to your question, but yeah, I was just looking, and it's really slim. You gotta go really far down that list, and who knows if we're even talking to these guys. So it's tough.
And again, I don't want to throw out too many names because we don't know a whole lot on these, but 2 more that are actually decent names. Naheem McLeod. I'm saying his last McLeod. It's called spelled a little differently. He was the
Right.
sophomore big man at Florida State this last year, another 7'3" guy. He's getting a lot of interest from Syracuse. But I think, give me another 7-footer. We'll figure it out. Mikel Mitchell from Arkansas. KU obviously saw him in the tournament this year. He'd be a serviceable big man, another veteran who may not be looking to be the guy somewhere. But yeah, like you said, it's pretty
Yeah.
slim pickings in the portal specifically. Um, KU's probably gonna have to find one of those stretch big man. Damian Collins out of Kentucky also put his name in the portal. He's more of a 3-4, but could be big enough to play the 5. His name's out there. KU also, though, they are hosting this weekend the number 1 center prospect of the 2024 class. Let me make sure I say his name right. Flory Badunga, 6'9", 215. There's thoughts that he could reclassify, although that is also not super likely right now. But again, a bunch of names. The last one I want to throw out at you, which I think would just be fun from a KU historical standpoint, and I think he'd be eligible immediately because he's graduating. And that is the younger brother of former NCAA champion from the Kansas Jayhawks, Christian Brown. His younger brother, Parker Brown, listed at 6'9", 6'10". He, out of high school, signed with Missouri, stayed there for a couple years, and then transferred to UC Santa Clara. This last year actually averaged close to a double-double, about 8 points, 8 rebounds a game, 6'9", 6'10". Decent size. He'd be a serviceable backup that I think KU fans would welcome with open arms, just again because his brother is Christian Brown, and why
Yeah.
not try Brown route 2? But I think that would be fun.
Yeah.
Outside of that, there's probably some other high school recruits we don't know of, and I'm sure there's some other names that Bill Self has on a list that are people we wouldn't think of. It could be a guy kind of like the Cam Martin transfer we got. Maybe there's a guy that transfers from the JUCO level up, or a smaller school that we're not thinking of.
Yeah.
And I'm sure over the next 24 to 48 hours, a couple days, we'll know more. But we did want to just jump on here real quick, do a quick reaction. Disappointing news that Ernest is in the portal. Our hope is maybe he looks around, finds that the grass is not greener, and decides to stay here and finds a serviceable role, and KU can keep him. That'd be awesome. But if he does go, Ernest, we wish you the best of luck. And obviously we'll
Absolutely.
be keeping up with you. But JB, any other final thoughts on that before we jump out of here? Obviously, Mackenzie
Yeah.
Mgbako decision should be coming in the next 24 to 48 hours, ideally. And again, probably by the time you guys are watching or listening to this, it may already be announced. But again, that doesn't really change anything at the 5 spot. But any other final thoughts?
Yeah. If Udeh really is gone, I hope that he has seen the reaction from Kansas fans and and just understands that he was just so loved. As fans, we grow really attached to these players. We grow really attached to those letters that we wear across our chest, as we're playing this game. Um, and college basketball is changing. All the transfer portal has changed it. NIL has changed it a little bit. Some for better, some for worse. Um, there's 2 guys left on this roster from last year's team, and my gosh, if it was 3, it would feel way better. We want next year to be. Even though it's going to be a lot different, there's going to be a lot of different faces. We want there to be some pride, and sometimes that comes from listening to the guys who have been through this program before. He's got so much to prove. I have no doubt that he can be successful wherever he goes. He's absolutely incredible. But you know what? If there's any chance that today's reaction of sadness and sorrow and depression and oh no's and say it ain't so's, I hope that Ernest sees that and just magically decides to come back. It's yet to be seen, but some guy transfers out, he's gone, but I want to see him come back for sure. So um, we just love Ernest and hoping for the best moving forward, no matter what.
There you have it, guys. So stay up to date. A lot of stuff's going to happen the next 24, 48, 72 hours, next 5, 6 days. Obviously, even though the portal has closed, there's still a lot of off season left to be had, and I'm sure we will have more news coming soon. As soon as Mgbako makes his decision, if he does in fact choose Kansas like we predict. We'll of course jump back on and talk about it over the next couple of days, and then sometime next week I plan on putting out another episode, just again as an update of where we sit with the final 2 roster spots. Maybe diving a little bit further into what type of player they could go after now that we will get some names next week, and then also want to talk a little bit about the impact, diving a little bit more into the impact the transfer portal and NIL is going to have on recruiting, and why we're in this position that we are, because now KU has basically no one returning next year, all new faces. They're going to have to learn how to build team chemistry and continuity on the fly. So It might be ugly early. We've got all the talent, whether we find a serviceable backup or not. We've got plenty of talent to still be one of the top teams in the nation. And of course, Bill Self has never let us down before, so why would he let us down now? So again, KU fans, I don't think there's a lot to be worried about yet. Maybe if we're a month out from now and we're still waiting on some news and we don't know anything about what's happened, then maybe. But I think for the time being, it's in Bill Self we trust. So with that, guys, thank you. Again, you can find the podcast over on Spotify. Search KC Sports Authority. You can also watch us here on YouTube. Same thing, search KC Sports Authority or at KCSA Pod. Find us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram as well. Again, at KCSA Pod. Let us know your thoughts on Ernest. Maybe share some of your opinions on your favorite moments of him. I know there's not a whole lot of playing time to pick from, but I think he had some nice dunks and pick and roll action.
He had some good blocks.
But yeah, thanks guys again, and look forward to sharing more news with you guys soon. Rock Chalk.
Rock Chalk.